Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am so grateful that you're here. So today I thought I would talk to you about something called staying in the wish fulfilled, or people say act from the end, like your goal has been achieved. Or maybe many of you out there have been introduced to Neville Garth and you've been told to just follow his teachings or follow people who have been studying his teachings. Maybe you find yourself thinking, what does it all mean, feeling the wish fulfilled? And I'm going to say that I found Neville works a little bit complicated to understand myself. And it wasn't until I myself made a decision that all the answers were within me, that I am the solution. And also listening to a lot of other teachers with the same message, then I managed to understand Neville better. But always checking in with myself during this upgrade of knowledge, that I'm not just taking in more and more information, that I fully understand for myself in my own way what it actually means. So I think Neville is super great. I have understood him more by reading other books. And also taking a break from listening or reading books and just having a conversation with myself. So what I want you to imagine, and I'm going to use an example from Neville's book. I want you to imagine that your name is Neville and you're living in an apartment and you are kind of finding it hard to get by every day. You find it challenging. And as I'm sharing this story, I am using the one from his book, but I'm also adding a bit extra. So if you're a Neville fan and you're noticing that I'm adding things he didn't write, you're right, because I'm using my imagination to create that story more. Or maybe I stick to it. So imagine that your name is Neville and you live in New York and you're a dancer and you find it very challenging to get by every day because you don't get money in all the time. Can you imagine living in New York in an apartment and you're a dancer and you're finding it hard to get by, even to get food on the table? And there's a lot of dancers also in New York that are competing to get the same role. So some days you don't get money in, but every night before you go to bed, you're dreaming of going home to Barbados, where you are from. And you're thinking about being in Barbados and you're feeling the warmth. And then one day you meet a guy out in the street. This is where my imagination comes in from the real story. You meet a guy in the street and his name is Abdullah. And Abdullah takes time to talk to you and you're sharing with him your frustration. But then you're saying, I just want to go to Barbados and I want to be there with my family. And Abdullah is noticing that this is something you really want. And he makes a decision to help you, to guide you on your journey to Barbados. And he says, Neville, I want you to see yourself in Barbados. And then from Barbados, you see New York. So you're going to bed actually in Barbados using your imagination. So what did Neville do? He went home that night and he was feeling so happy because he was in Barbados. And he practiced this for a couple of days. And then he met Abdullah again in the street. And Abdullah told him, so how is it going? Are you in Barbados? And Neville said, no, I don't know where I'm going to get the money. And Abdullah told him, you are in Barbados. You have gone to Barbados. And Neville was like, okay. He's like, I have gone to Barbados. I am in Barbados. And when he got home that day, under his door, there was a check from his brother sent by mail, $50. When Neville grew up, $50 was a lot of money. So Neville went down and bought the ticket to Barbados. And he was kind of surprised that he was able to manifest this. And then he went to Abdullah and he said, I got money from my brother. I'm going to Barbados. And Abdullah looked at him and he said, you have gone to Barbados and you are in Barbados and you traveled first class. Did you notice the last thing he put in? You traveled first class. And Neville was like, well, I didn't get a first class ticket. And Abdullah said, you have gone to Barbados, you traveled first class. And Neville was like, okay. And he went down there to check if there was any first class tickets that he could get. And it was full. So he was like, okay. And then he worked on seeing himself traveling first class. And on the day that Neville was traveling to Barbados, he still hadn't gotten an answer that he was going to travel first class. So he was going and he was onboarding the ship. And then he gave his ticket. And then they looked at it and they said, we had a cancellation for first class. Would you like to travel first class? And Neville was like, yes. So the story is, you have to convince yourself that you are already where you want to be, that it just happened. And it's about believing in yourself that you can actually, like Neville, he believed that he was going to go to Barbados, like that was going to happen. He didn't know how, because the how was not his business. But all he had to do was believe that it was going to happen. And when the signs showed up, he didn't just like, oh, thank you, now next sign come. He took action. He went down and purchased the ticket. And then he held the belief that he was going to travel first class. And then when he heard, you can get this first class ticket, he took it without saying like, oh, no, I'm not worthy of it. He said, yes. So the point of the story is that whatever you want, if it's to start a business or if it's to set a goal that you never done before, that you maybe think is huge, your job is to see yourself in the end. So in the end, for Neville, that was in Barbados, going to bed in Barbados. For you, maybe it's standing on that stage, speaking to hundreds of people, and the feeling of how that feels. Not seeing yourself from here like that would be nice, but feeling that you're on that stage, you're now speaking to them, and you've done it. If there's a goal you have in your business about bringing in a certain amount of clients, you have to see yourself. If it's every month you want to bring in, let's say 30, you have to see yourself that you are bringing in 30 people. Like you get emails, for example, daily, and it's so much fun. And how it feels that it's done. You have to believe that you can have this. You have to convince yourself over and over again with repetition, and allow yourself that even though the outside world is not showing this yet, it has happened and it's gonna happen. Because as long as you carry that attitude, remember my video from yesterday when I talked about these key speakers that I looked at, and they were speaking, and that inspired something within me that I also wanted to do. You have to allow yourself that this is going to happen. The Barbados story is a really good, but I think also it can get confusing because it's so simple, and we're not used to things being simple. So we are used to overcomplicating it, so we kind of give up in the end instead of allowing ourselves to hold that space We have to do like an athlete who's training for the Olympics, for example. We have to do the same exercise over and over and over again and see ourselves winning, see ourselves going to the top, and see ourselves getting the medal that we have won and people are clapping. Whatever it is for you, you have to find the journey of how it's going to feel for you and how you can hold that memory. But it doesn't mean that you're just going to hold that memory also. You're going to take action when you get ideas from yourself what to do. You don't need to ask anyone else if they think it's a good idea. You only have to act on what comes to you. It may be illogical. That is part of the process. And sometimes it's the smallest thing that gets you there. So staying in the wish fulfill is easy because you have to find your own formula, how that is going to feel. And you can think about a memory. This is something also Maxwell Maltz talks about in psycho-cybernetics. Find a memory that you remember where you felt really good. So I can share a memory that I use a lot. So when I was 27 years old, I got a job in New York. And I remember getting on the plane and how successful I felt because I applied for this job 3 times and I didn't know anything about the organization that I was working for. I read a little bit, but I didn't know so much. So it was that excitement of sitting and reading on the plane, and a new chapter in my life was starting. It was like I had butterflies in my stomach, and it was summer. I was leaving an old job, and here I was going to New York. So find a memory that you can put on that memory of you being, for example, in Barbados, or wherever it is, if you have difficulties holding the excitement, and also motivating yourself. And there's things you have to do that's not fun all the time, but you do it because you know that your goals and your dreams has happened. You're there. But on the journey, there's things you have to do, just like Neville. So, are you ready? Let me know in the comments below how it's going.